We're going to talk about archery hunting in relationship to ethics. I know that this is an aspect of guns and hunting and gunsmithing, but the archery ties right into this because it's hunting. I've been asked to do something on this, and I said that I would. Just several days ago, while I had some idle time, I happened to switch to something where there was a hunting show on TV, and we had a fella in the stand, and he was waiting and waiting and waiting to get a shot at a deer, and he took a very poor angle shot with an arrow at a deer, something around the 30-yard area, something like that. From my observation, I could see that this arrow went in just ahead of this head, or right at the forward portion of the shoulder where the neck joins, went in over the top of the vertebrae. The arrow went clear through. Now, here's the clincher, folks. This slob hunter that's giving everybody a very bad name in the hunting field, not only from archery but hunting. They look for that. They waited about 60 hours before they looked for this deer. They never found it that day. They never found it the next day or into the next day. Now, it's very apparent to me that these slobs want nothing but bragging rights and a picture with this deer. This meat in this wonderful animal meant absolutely nothing to this slob hunter. I don't know a better word to describe this than slob hunter. Now, to top it all off, they obviously don't get it. They obviously don't understand anything. Absolutely anything about ethics or right or wrong or anything else. Because it's aired on TV and it's like it's acceptable and all this happens and so what? And so this clown goes on another day to shoot a deer. Now, as far as I'm concerned, and in a lot of areas, a lot of states, and in even other countries, you draw blood on an animal, that's yours. You make out your tag, you're done, you're finished with that aspect of hunting. Some parts of Africa is this way. And I think that there should be something put in place in every state that if an individual draws blood on an animal, that he makes out his tag, and that's the end of it. That's the end of the story. So they go on and they take another one. Now, we've got many and many aspects to do with this. Tracking ability is the average individual out here has hardly no tracking ability at all. They don't have any appreciation for our wildlife. Our wildlife here in Wyoming is disappearing terribly because of mismanagement and because of people just like this. We happen to live very close to Yellowstone Park, and you can hunt right up to the park border, but you can't kill anything in Yellowstone Park. Well, a lot of these folks hunt right by the park border because it's a sanctuary for these animals, and when they're hit with a bullet or an arrow, their first reaction is to go to the sanctuary of the park. You cannot go into the park to retrieve any part of any game animal whatsoever, period. Now, we've got a lot of other aspects. We've got private property that's tied into this. Maybe you're hunting on state ground, federal ground, BLM ground, and these animals go on to private property. Now, somebody's hunting close to private property. It should be very obvious to most anybody, it is to me, that if you were going to hunt there, that you should perhaps have a visit with the landowner in that event that maybe something leaves the ground that you're on and goes onto this private property, to see if you can even retrieve it. And if you can't retrieve it because the landowner won't allow permission, you shouldn't be hunting there in the first damn place. Just like you shouldn't be right up against the park line if the animal's going to go into the park. I know that there's a tremendous amount of carcasses, antler sets, horn sets, laying all around the perimeter of Yellowstone Park by these slobs. You know, years ago, I saw in a magazine, it happened to be the Foundation for North American Wild Sheep, somebody was hunting, you know, over in some part of the country where we have these big Argali type rams. I can't tell you exactly right now where he was, but they shot an animal in severe weather at something between about 550 or 70 yards, and it was damn near dark. And they didn't bother to make any attempt to go to that animal. They went the next day. It was very, very cold, below zero, way below zero. The animal was froze. But this guy got his big picture with his big ass smile on his face, like he's a big hunter. And it was depicted in the Foundation North American Wild Sheep, one of their magazines. And I brought it up with one of the fellas that oversaw public relations, and they wanted to try to deny it. I says, it can't be denied, it's in the magazine. It's all there, it's all detailed. You see? So we've got even entities such as this, supposed to be pretty well known and pretty well thought of. Well, I know what has become of a lot of this hunting. When I was growing up and became eligible to be able to buy a hunting license, the first thing that I wanted was the meat. I wanted the meat. I could get a license at 14 years old. And to this day, my first and most important aspect is the meat of that animal. And if I have a trophy, that's so much the better. And I've been on more hunts than you could ever imagine in your whole lifetime. And I have but few pictures, because I've never thought that much. Early on, we didn't have the photographic equipment that we have today. But even today, I mean, probably very occasionally do I have a picture of an animal that I've shot out in the field. Quite often it's when I packed it in here and I've taken a picture of it from the place here, you know, and so forth, to save for time. But it's never been a great big damn ego thing filled with disrespect for the animal. And it's become more and more important that we respect these animals. Now, I'm going to describe something here. A 60 or 70 yard shot at a deer or an elk with any archery equipment, I don't care what archery equipment that it is the same as a shot at about 1,000 yards at an animal with a rifle. Now think about it, folks. This is really what it's all about. When you start adding 5 yards and 10 yards to a distance, if you're trying to take any game with archery equipment past about 30 yards or so, you're stretching things. You're starting to stretch things a bit at 35, and you sure as hell have stretched it at 40, and you stretched it way past out here at 60, 70 yards, and even sometimes further, these people doing these things. We've got situations where a bow is capable of driving an arrow so fast that it's unbelievable, and actually driving it too fast. And this doesn't create a good situation, because we've got a pass-through situation, and this passes on through, and it hasn't actually done the damage. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't archery equipment out here, arrows and one thing and another, bows, that are proper for the application, because there is. And my central focus for this whole situation is that animal. I've paid my lifetime into the hunting aspect, into conservation, into growing wildlife herds and one thing and another, and you slobs are the ones that are taking it away. You're not the only ones that are taking it away. We've got game departments that are absolutely, completely out of control, that are not looking after our wildlife to see that this wildlife is here through time. It's not going to be here through time. It's already been proven here in Wyoming that it's not going to be here through time, because we've lost the greatest share of our wildlife in this entire region, in the Bighorn Basin in Park County of Wyoming, because of the main reason is mismanagement and heavy predation. And it's been done purposely because the game departments can't stand it that we're out here enjoying the out of doors. The only damn thing that they're interested in is their paycheck and their retirement and their big posh office. They've got out of control, just like they've got out of control in Washington, D.C. They've adopted the socialistic approach to trying to control people. Both Washington and Wyoming and damn near every other state has adopted this socialistic control of people. Now, if we add up all these things, the socialistic control of people, these slobs, the mismanagement, and one thing and another, all of a sudden, we've got a very, very precarious situation. Our game has been destroyed. I've paid into this for an entire lifetime. 57 years I've been buying game licenses, 59 years fishing licenses and trapping licenses, because I had to do that at age 12. But anyway, it's just complete disrespect. And it just seems like there's absolutely no limit. There's absolutely no limit. They're going to try this. I had a conversation with a client about a week ago, and he happened to kill an elk at 515 yards with a 300 Weatherby that I built him. Shot it with a 180 grain Accubon right in the armpit. Dropped the elk right in its tracks, but there was somebody else around, and there were elk that were further away. Now this guy had a 6.5 by 47 Lapua, and the elk was a few yards over 1,200 yards away. Now he shot at this elk, and he actually hit the elk. This friend of mine's son was watching, and his brother was watching. The guy actually hit the elk. Now this clown made absolutely no attempt to go to get the elk or anything else, and he didn't want the meat. All he'd wanted was the antlers. So one of these young fellas that were just sick to their stomach over this, they went and retrieved the elk, took the meat, and he got the antlers so he could have a picture of himself. Now, I ask you, doesn't this prove everything that I'm telling you? It sure as hell does. Now, I don't know exactly, you know, the animal had to have been shot. It was dead by the time they found it. The elk had traveled about 600 yards. In this country, if an elk traveled 600 yards, we'd have a tough time finding it. This happened to have been down in New Mexico. I don't know just exactly where. But anyway, people think that a 6x47 Lapua, which is virtually the same thing as a 6.5 Creedmoor, as far as performance goes, actually even maybe slightly less, that this is a 1,000-yard plus elk gun. Well, yeah, it did kill the elk, but this clown shouldn't have never been able to buy a hunting license. He shouldn't have never been able to do what he did because of everything that I've described. If he didn't want the meat, all he wanted was the antlers. This is all that he cared about. These young fellows retrieved all the meat, and by the way, he was cited and fined for what he did. And in every instance, this is exactly what needs to happen. All these situations need to be brought to light, and they need to be cited for the wrongdoing, and they need to be fined. I think that we've got a crowd of people that are so engrossed in themselves and pulling these stupid stunts, because right now at the point in history, there's never been a time when stupid is more prevalent. And these are really stupid things. Shouldn't be going on at all. Our social media, these hunting shows, these people that have created their own hunting shows and one thing and another, they are some of the biggest culprits out there, some of the worst, because they're there for one thing, to get some film footage, and this encourages people, other people, to do things like this. This shouldn't be happening absolutely at all. This should come to a screeching halt. And we need to have more people watching these situations. We need to have the right people watching these situations that are in a position to take care of these issues. Because I'm telling you, this wonderful outdoor sport of hunting is on its way out. It's on its way out here in Wyoming. Yeah, we're going to be able to hunt somewhere here in Wyoming, but it sure as hell isn't going to be right here. My son's been out now. Today's the 6th day with a hunter, guiding a hunter, and his remark this morning at about an hour before daylight, as he was headed into the mountains, into the deep backcountry with his hunter, was that there was so few deer. Now this boy knows the mountains, he knows the routes that game travels and one thing and another. I've got all the information.
He called it a desert.
You know, my son called it this morning a wildlife desert. The greatest hunting that anybody could ever imagine of anywhere on the face of this earth has been destroyed. See, this is absolutely unacceptable, and it needs to come to a screeching halt now.